Alright guys, Pokemon Legends EA looks very different from Pokemon Legends Arceus. Like, way more different than any of us expected. Not only is it different visually, but a lot of other aspects of ZA seem like vast departures from what we thought were newly established norms set by Arceus. Gameplay, time periods, and even tone are almost polar opposites from what we expected here. It's crazy to think when you consider PLA was already very different from every other mainline Pokemon game to date in its own right, but now with ZA in front of our eyes, it's time to reevaluate what makes a Legends game in the Pokemon franchise now that we've been proven wrong about so much. Not to fret though, I do still believe there are clear patterns to be seen when you look at both games together. And I'd like to point all those things out and see how accurately that reflects in the future when we get an inevitable third Legends game. The first aspect of both Pokemon Legends EA and Legends Arceus that shines through so far is a similar story theme. In both titles, there's a very pointed focus on the concept of attempting for humans and Pokemon to live together in harmony. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, Hisui was a mostly untouched region being colonized by humans from other regions. The only natives were the Diamond Clan and Pearl Clan. These two clans were the main groups that had any sort of harmony with Pokemon when we first start the game. They're not trainers in the typical sense, they don't use Pokeballs to capture their partners, they simply befriend them and live in battle alongside each other. Sure, eventually we witness a few trainers in the more familiar sense, such as the Ginkgo Guild and Galaxy team members, but we, the player, help them all further their cooperation with Pokemon. It's a central part of the story. There are even a plethora of side quests and main quests where we catch Pokemon and give them to residents of Jubilife Village. When we do this, we help them accomplish things like overcoming their fears of Pokemon, shedding light on their curiosity of Pokemon, and even helping them understand Pokemon on a deeper level. By the end of the game, almost every resident has a Pokemon of their own that we've given them, or has at least had an eye-opening interaction with one. In Legends EA, we're touching on the same theme. The redevelopment plan for Lumiose has one goal in mind: to allow Pokemon and humans to live in harmony within a cityscape. AZ, as a character, is someone who's committed an atrocious crime towards Pokemon kind in the past, and I imagine his character arc moving forward will be atoning for that, and I have no doubt he has a heavy hand in the redevelopment project. Not much is known about the story or its beats in Legends EA yet, but one thing is clear: the focus of the game is the same as Legends Arceus: Pokemon and humans living in sync, just this time on a more man-made turf rather than a naturally formed one. Another pillar of what makes a Legends game seems to be the focus on important historical events. In Legends Arceus, we had the obvious. We set in motion pretty much all the pieces needed for Sinnoh to be what it is in modern day. We brought people and Pokemon together. We stopped Giratina and Volo's evil scheme. We quelled Arceus and the time-space legendaries, and we even sparked the showdown that led to the destruction of Spear Pillar. In Legends EA, even though it's set only a bit after the events of X and Y, there's no denying that the urban redevelopment project itself is a major historical event. I have also no doubt that on top of the urban redevelopment plan, something huge will happen involving Zygarde and possibly even a Pokemon like Hoopa within the story of Legends EA. Something big is sure to go down that will change the future of the Kalos region forever. If I may make one prediction, I also think this game might mark the end of AZ himself, but that's just my own personal theory. Maybe you guys think the story will go differently. Either way, if these moments in history are the focus, I could definitely see a future Legends game focusing on something like the Darkest Day in Galar, or the burning of the Brass Tower in Johto. While we're also on the topic of theories, I'd like to quickly take this time to make a prediction on what another pillar of the Legends formula might be moving forward. There may be a recurring trope of a previous Pokemon protagonist being thrust into a different region to help solve the problem of that game's historical event. In Legends Arceus, it seemed clear that the protagonist was a slightly older version of Lucas and Dawn from the future. They were sent to the past by Arceus to help build Sinnoh into what it is today, but back then the region was different in the sense that it was called Hisui, and was barely recognizable to the Sinnoh that we know from modern day. In Legends EA, we already know our trainer is from a different region, and is in Kalos for a sightseeing trip. Predictably, it's going to turn into some major ordeal, but the real kicker here is that many of us believe these protagonists to be Ethan and Lyra from Johto. I've explained all the similarities and hints in a previous video, and I'll link you to that at the end of this one. But if this is true, then I can definitely see this being something that happens in every Legends game. A familiar protagonist is launched into a different region and becomes a pivotal player in that major historical event. Okay, speculation aside, let's move on to the next clearly defined line for a Legends game. The focus on catching every Pokemon the game has to offer. In traditional mainline games, this is more of a personal side quest that the player can choose to partake in, and even then, you need to trade with friends and even get event Pokemon to fill out your Pokedex fully. In the Legends games though, we have only one version, and catching every Pokemon seems to tie into the narrative. In Arceus, we needed to catch them all not only to help the Galaxy team understand the Pokemon of the region and survive, but to prove ourselves to Arceus himself. In Legends EA, it will likely be to understand what the Pokemon need to survive long-term in the habitats of the city. There's also a chance Zygarde might also want us to catch them all, since he's the overseer of balance in the ecosystem within the Pokemon world. But by far the biggest pillar of what makes a Legends game is action mechanics. It's pretty clear by now that the main gameplay goal of the Legends titles is to branch out from the traditional Pokemon formula and introduce real-time action mechanics to mainline. Legends Arceus did this by giving the player character a health bar and maneuverability. Pokemon could attack us in the wild, and if they got you, you could die. Conversely, we could drown or even fall to our deaths. To avoid this, we were given the ability to dodge roll so that we could avoid incoming attacks from wild Pokemon. We could throw items at wild Pokemon to scare them away or stun them. And we had Pokemon mounts that allowed us to cross water or canyons safely. In Legends EA, I'll admit it's still unclear if Pokemon can attack you or if we're subject to a fatal fall, swim, or health bar at all, but we do know that action has found its way into our Pokemon battles themselves for the first time. Pokemon now have real-time cooldowns to moves and have to physically dodge attacks in real time to, well, dodge them. It's the biggest departure in Pokemon battles we've ever seen in mainline, and whether you're a fan of that or not, it's an exciting experiment to watch unfold as it hits our hands later this year. Are there other aspects that you've noticed might be pillars of what makes a Legends game in Pokemon though? If so, comment it below so we can all feel real dumb for missing it. Afterwards, check out more of my videos like this one here where I reveal even more overlooked details no one is talking about for Legends EA. The link is right in front of you and in the pinned comment. Also, if you'd like to support me and have your name featured at the end of all my videos, click the Patreon link in front of you or in the description, or become a channel member right here on YouTube. I've been JotoJohnny, and I'll catch you all there.